Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. With the price of just about everything going up during inflation, we thought we'd bring our prices down. So to help us, we brought in a reverse auctioneer, which is apparently a thing.
Mint Mobile Unlimited Premium Wireless. How to get 30, 30, bit to get 30, bit to get 20, 20, 20, bit to get 20, 20, bit to get 15, 15, 15, 15, just $15 a month? Sold!
Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
$45 up front for 3 months plus taxes and fees. Promo rate for new customers for limited time. Unlimited more than 40 gigabytes per month. Slows full terms at mintmobile.com.
This is Find Your Dream Job, the podcast that helps you get hired, have the career you want, and make a difference in life. I'm your host, Mac Pritchard. I'm also the founder of Mac's List. It's a job board in the Pacific Northwest that helps you find a fulfilling career. Every Wednesday, I talk to a different expert about the tools you need to get the work you want. You're moving into a new career. How do you show employers that what you did in your old occupation applies in your new field? Zach Moore joins us to discuss how to identify and talk about your transferable skills. He's the Career Pathways Manager at College Possible. It's a nonprofit that coaches students from low-income communities to and through college. He joins us from Portland, Oregon. Well, let's get going, Zach. Let's start with definitions. What do you mean exactly when you talk about transferable skills?
I love this question because transferable skills represent one of really three categories of skills that we like to think about in the career development space. And this is really, to me, inspired by the book, What Color is Your Parachute? It's a pretty well-known and renowned career development book that, stays current year to year. And they sort of divide the concept of professional skills into these three categories, one of which is transferable skills. But the first one they talk about is hard skills. And hard skills are like knowledge. They're usually nouns. We're talking about things like mathematics, physics, data analysis, graphic design, etc. And I think like most people, when they think about skills, hard skills tend to be the first thing they think about. And a lot of times when I work with college students or recent grads, early career folks, they are also thinking about this as the top of mind because it's related to their majors, right? And their minors is what they went to school for. But that's not everything. There's also soft skills. We hear that a lot. I actually prefer Simon Sinek's take on that. He calls them human skills because, hard and soft are opposites and we want to get away from that thinking. But human skills are like traits. They're kind of like self-management. It's how you show up in the workplace, how you behave. Are you adaptable? Are you enthusiastic? Are you empathetic, et cetera, right? So what's missing? We have what we know and then we have how we behave, how we show up in the workplace. It's really transferable skills are what you do. What you can do on projects in the work, what tasks you have. Are you researching? Are you coaching? Are you teaching? Are you problem solving? Are you thinking of new innovations, new ideas? And the point of them is that they are transferable, exactly that, to different industries, different organizations. The odds are that if you did some form of data analysis or coaching or public speaking in one industry or one company or organization, you can do it for another. And so that's the concept of transferable. And it really centers sort of how we work, how we spend our days, and how we complete the tasks and what we love doing, as opposed to just what we know or how we act and work with others.
Do you find, Zach, that the people you work with understand these three sets of skills and the difference among them and the value that they can offer in a job search and in your career?
Yeah, I think when it's described in that sort of way, especially with examples, I think that, it's pretty quick to grasp. But what I think is interesting is that I think the transferable skills they sound obvious, right? But they're almost so obvious that they're not obvious in the way that you kind of take for granted, breathing, walking, and chewing gum at the same time while you're listening to a podcast. I think we forget about, how we spend our day. And I think when I talk to early grad or, recent grads or college students, sometimes when they think about an occupation that they want to pursue or a job they want to have, they like the idea of it, but sometimes lack the knowledge of what are the transferable skills? What are the work activities? What's a day in the life of that person? So you think about, video game development. That's a recent one that folks love. Students love video games. They're like, I want to design video games. Well, that's actually quite a lot of software development, coding, and mathematics. It's probably important that the student is interested in those three and furthermore has skill in those areas before they even think about the dream of doing that one day. So really unpacking what is it like to be on the job. And I think when we talk about that, it's almost like a light bulb goes off and they go, oh, why, that's a great point. And I should probably look more into that.
We're going to talk about how to look into it, how to identify and talk about your skills. Before we get there, what do employers care most about when you're talking about your transferable skills? What are they listening for?
I love this question because I think what we're seeing in a lot of recent developments and a lot of this research comes out of big consortiums like the National Association of Colleges and Employers, NACE. We got the Strata Education Network, Chronicle of Higher Education. We're hearing over and over again from employers that they value the main tenets of a liberal arts education. And that's not to, throw any shade, if you will, at the more hard skill heavy careers like, in STEM or, hard skills are really important. We do need to know how to use certain platforms and do certain things. But I think it's more the intangibles. It's more the transferable skills. It's the critical thinking. It's the problem solving. It's, thinking outside of the box. Can you analyze patterns? Can you listen intently? Can you seek to understand as opposed to coming in with all these, it's all about me and you understand that I've got it all together. It's more, no, what does the market need? What does the client need? It depends on the industry, right? But I think that's, a lot of times you hear this thing that employers will say, you've got you've got you've got what we're looking for. We can teach you the stuff that you don't know. So, okay, you used, Tableau and you've used SPSS and some of these different softwares. Well, we use Salesforce. I'm not worried about the fact that you haven't used it yet. You can learn it. It's more, your critical thinking and problem solving and an analysis skills. That's what that you're bringing. That's what we value. We can teach you the rest.
How do you coach recent graduates and college students about how to talk about that? Because often people may think that, I'll just list the skills I have and that should be enough. But to your point about employers caring about things like critical thinking, what's a good way for someone who wants to emphasize those transferable skills to highlight them both in their application materials and in their conversations with hiring managers and interviews? What have you seen work?
Tell us a story. Tell us a story and be specific. When have you used these skills? It's that show, don't tell. Obviously, I just said tell us a story, but you understand the metaphor that it's give me an example of when you've thought critically or had some example of problem solving with a lot of nuanced variables and you've really, attacked a problem in a unique way. Tell me that and don't sweat the fact that it may be in a different industry. And I especially think that, a lot of college students, if they don't have a robust, previous work experience, maybe they were just bagging groceries or maybe they were, a barista for Starbucks or something, they might sell themselves short. And I think that's a shame. I think it's important to have confidence, and that in your own self-efficacy and what you bring to the table. And don't be afraid of telling a story that may seem like it's in an industry that's irrelevant. But it actually speaks to the skills that you have. So, I think about, I'm actually going to tell a personal story of my wife was working in big tech in Silicon Valley. She was working for Google and doing a lot of, HR stuff and did a ton of program administration, a lot of admin work, a lot of spreadsheets, a lot of emails. And she really wanted to do a transition into the industry, sustainable energy and clean energy. And she just couldn't. She didn't have the confidence to walk into an interview or tell a story on a cover letter because she just felt like she was stuck in this tech world. And really what ended up getting her through to break through and get an interview and then win that interview to break into that that space here in Portland was telling stories from Google with confidence and saying, look, I understand you have a lot of clients, you have a lot of distributors of solar and wind, et cetera. And that's a lot of spreadsheets. That's a lot of data. Here's examples of when I've worked through tons of spreadsheets, tons of data. I have lots of really great Excel skills. And I handled really wide varieties of diverse workloads. And I killed it. I did a great job in these areas, and I can do that for you. It's not, college students especially, they think a lot about when they're applying for internships or scholarships, et cetera. They're thinking, what is this going to do for me? But you really have to flip that when you're in the work, when you're a job seeker, and say, this is what I bring to you. And this is an example of when I've done it for someone else. And don't sweat it if it's in a different industry. You can prove that it's transferable by telling that story with confidence and being specific. Give me examples. What did you do? Not what your team did. Tell me what you specifically did.
Well, this is terrific, Zach. We're going to take a break. When we come back, Zach Moore will continue to share his advice on how to identify and talk about your transferable skills. And in the second segment, Zach, I really want to dig into how you do that, identify those skills and talk more about them. So stay with us. We're back at the Max List studio. I'm talking with Zach Moore. He's the Career Pathways Manager at College Possible. It's a nonprofit that coaches students from low-income communities to and through college. Zach joins us from Portland, Oregon. Now, Zach, before the break, we were talking about transferable skills and why they matter, how to distinguish transferable skills from hard and soft skills. And we also talked about how to discuss your transferable skills with employers and what hiring managers are listening for when you do that. Let's talk now about how to identify your transferable skills and dig into that. You've got a number of tips I know that you share with the students and recent grads that you work with. One of them is to reflect on your professional experiences. Tell us more about this. Zach, what do you have in mind, and how will this help you identify your transferable skills?
Yeah, so I think the first step is really to reflect on some work-related success stories, ones where you felt like you were really thriving, you were using your strengths, you were at your best, but also that you were enjoying it, you were feeling productive, you felt accomplished. And I think you want to think of more than one. In fact, I think the best is like to shoot for 5 to 7. And the reason is that when you reflect on these stories, you want to take some notes. You want to write down some examples, like tell the story to yourself, remind yourself. And then you use what, the book, we talked about What Color is Your Parachute. They've got a transferable skills grid. We've adapted this here at College Possible. And so you just go through and you look at examples of transferable skills and you check the box of all of the ones that you were using in this particular story. And then when you do that 5 to 7 times with different stories, you'll start to notice patterns. You'll start to see, oh my gosh, wow. So it's really when I'm, speaking to clients or when I'm speaking to stakeholders, when I'm persuading people, when I'm motivating people, these transferable skills with people, this is really, I'm seeing a lot of this across all of my examples. And that will hopefully affirm you, you'll feel good. You'll feel confident. You'll say, oh my gosh, yes, this does feel like me. And that really will boost your confidence, and it will make you feel better and feel like I can go talk to an employer and say what I do best. And I have tangible examples of doing that at my best.
Paint a quick picture, Zach, of this grid. What does it look like for somebody who's listening and might not have the chance to look at the book or go online? What is this? What should you visualize in your mind when you think about this grid?
Yeah, I love that. So I would divide it into 3 sections. You've got skills with people, and then you've got skills with data and ideas, and then you have skills with things. So if it helps to just think in those 3 categories, you can do a Google search of transferable skills, try and find some word banks. They're out there. And try and divide them in those 3 categories. And so imagine the first category, skills with people, just a list of, supervise, manage, follow through, motivate, consult, advise, assess, instruct, listen, counsel, those sort of things. Those are things that you do with people, right? And then check those boxes. And then below, you have skills with data and ideas. This is now create, innovate, design, visualize, think critically, synthesize, perceive patterns, analyze, solve problems. That's data and ideas, right? And then the last one is skills with things. So we can't leave out those more hands-on work. So are you repairing something? Are you constructing something? Are you shaping it? Are you sculpting? Is it an art thing that you're doing? Are you operating something? Are you driving something? Are you using some form of technology that is with your hands, or it's something with things? That's the sort of last category. And you just go through for each story, check the box, circle the ones, write down the same skills that you find yourself using.
So you construct that list, you know your transferable skills, you've organized them by these categories. Now you're ready to tell that story that you encourage people to do, and to have 5 to 7 of those stories. What's the structure of that story look like when you're getting ready to talk about your transferable skills, both in your application materials and in your interviews?
Well, first off, you want to make sure that there are examples of things that whatever job you're looking for, whatever job you're applying for, employer, that specifically what they want, what's a task they need done. I've heard it said that every job description is a cry for help. Now they're sold like, marketing materials because they want to, sell it to the best talent out there. So they're writing it a bit strategically, but the reality is that they're hiring because they need help, and they specifically put in the job description what they need. So when you see a job description and you see examples of tasks that relate to your personal transferable skills, that's exciting. You can go, I can tell a story that speaks to the skill that I have that is exactly what they need because they put that in their job description. And you want to, use the language they use and say, hey, so, they'll ask you questions in the interview if that's the example, right? Or otherwise, if it's in the cover letter, you get to be creative in how you write that. Write to exactly what they want, telling stories of your transferable skills and your previous experiences.
Often when people are making a career change, they do this work, they understand what their transferable skills are, and they figure out by looking at job descriptions what matters to an employer. But they have their hearts set on working in a particular industry or for one company. What do you think of that approach when you're trying to make a career change?
It's a great question because, I like to think of it, imagine two scenarios. It's the dream role, but in an industry you're not super passionate about, or for a company you don't care a lot about, or a mission you're not excited about. But, it's the dream role. It's all the tasks you love and it needs the skills you have, versus the, industry, company, mission that you're most passionate about, but it's a job that, may not be the best fit for your skills or exciting to you on the job. There's a couple different ways of thinking about this. Some folks will say, hey, get into that industry and just take whatever you can get and make yourself invaluable. And then, leverage that to get into have them move you into a role that's better fit for you. I sort of subscribe, it's ironic to your question, but I subscribe to build those transferable skills, hone your strengths. And it doesn't matter if it's in a different industry or something for the moment. I know that's tough to sacrifice, but sometimes life's about sacrifices. But hopefully then when whatever industry, company, mission that is hiring for what you do best, you kind of jump on that. And that's, Mac, this is the Find Your Dream Job podcast. That's the dream job, right? So it really just depends on priorities and sacrifices. Can you endure a day-to-day job that might not be what you love the most, but it's for the mission you care the most about? And how long can you do that before you can hopefully get moved into a better role that fits you or suits you, right? So I don't know if that specifically answered your question, but I think it depends on the context. But I would just never shy away from, really selling yourself for that company or industry that you want to get into, for the role that fits you, even though maybe perhaps your previous experience isn't in that exact industry. You just have to be able to tell that story to them so that it's relatable. They say, oh, okay, you did that for them. That means you can do it for us.
Well, it's been a terrific conversation. Zach, now tell us what's next for you.
Well, so College Possible is a really, speaking of dream jobs, it's a great fit for me right now. I think speaking of missions, I really care about being able to offer low-income students this type of coaching, and we're really trying to build partnerships with universities so that we can help coach our students into college, but then start to build partnerships with employers so that these students who are predominantly students of color and from underrepresented communities, they can really break out into the workforce because the workforce is better for having them. So I'm excited about it.
Well, terrific. I know that listeners can learn more about you and your work at College Possible by visiting the College Possible website. And that URL is collegepossible.org/locations/Oregon. And you also invite listeners to connect with you on LinkedIn. And as always, when people reach out to you there, I hope they'll mention they heard you on Find Your Dream Job. Now, given all the great advice you've shared today, Zach, what's the one thing you want a listener to remember about how to identify and talk about your transferable skills?
Don't forget that your day-to-day work life matters, and that's really where the rubber meets the road. It's how you're shining every day, completing the tasks and responsibilities that are in your portfolio, and think about that. Be mindful about that, especially when you're job searching, that you make sure that whatever job you're going for and hopefully being hired into is one that suits your skills and strengths, and you deserve that. So prioritize that.
Next week, our guest will be Jasmine Tolbert. She's the Vice President of People and Culture for YWCA Clark County. Her organization is dedicated to eliminating racism, empowering women, and promoting peace, justice, freedom, and dignity for all. Companies are asking candidates for jobs of all kinds at all levels about diversity, equity, and inclusion. Hiring managers do this to better understand a candidate's perspective on diversity and inclusion in the workplace. Join us next Wednesday when Jasmine Tolbert and I talk about how to answer job interview questions about racial equity. Until next time, thanks for letting us help you find your dream job. This show is produced by Max List. Susan Thornton Huff schedules our guests and writes our newsletter. Lisa Kislenberry Anderson manages our social media. Our sound engineer and editor is Matt Fiorillo. Dawn Mole creates our transcripts, and our music is by Freddie Trujillo. This is Mac Pritchard. See you next week.